I'd love to be able to teleport. Teleportation would perhaps be the one that I might go for because just you could click your fingers
Yeah.
and then, oh, I'm in Tokyo. Click my fingers. Wow, I'm in Buenos Aires. Click my fingers. Ah, amazing. I'm in Kenya. So
Yeah.
that would be so cool. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another chit chat with me and my mum. And I'm going to be asking her some questions. She's going to be asking me the questions, and we'll be teaching you some advanced British English vocabulary at the same time. And first things first, mum, you might not have noticed, but look what I'm wearing here. A little
Mm.
plaster.
Oh,
It
no.
is a plaster, or in American English, they would call it, I believe, a band-aid. Because yesterday, when I was cutting some bread, I just cut a tiny bit
Oh,
off my finger. So, yeah, I'm wearing a plaster. But anyway,
oh,
less
no.
about me and more about you. Mum, how are you getting on?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you. I know we were supposed to do this podcast a few days ago, but we had a power cut here, so I jumped out of the shower, ready to get my hair dried because it's quite curly hair. No power, no hair dryer. Oh, I just couldn't have done it. And my hair would have been so frizzy because it would have just been a bunch of curls right out here. And it just, I'd have been too embarrassed. And it just, nothing worked. You forget how much you rely on electricity. But hey now, we're okay. I'm smooth, not looking too bad. Not great, but the
You
curls
look
are
fantastic. Come on, you look great.
no, no. But anyway, here I am.
But it's funny that you mention how much we rely on electricity and technology because as soon as you messaged me saying, like, Lewis, we might have to take a rain check on recording the podcast today because there's a blackout, there's a power cut. So all of the power, all of the electricity in our neighborhood had completely gone off and stopped working. Here in Brussels, it was absolutely fine. But the moment that happens to me, I start panicking immediately because I'm like, I can't teach. I can't record any kind of podcasts. I can barely record my own videos. And then if I run out of battery, I can't charge my phone. So it's an absolute nightmare if this happens. So hopefully there'll be no more power cuts.
Mm.
Now, just like we did a fortnight ago, and a fortnight is 2 weeks, by the way, I'm going to be asking Mom some questions and we'll be taking it in turns to answer them. And let me just teach you an expression that I used in passing just a minute ago, which was to take a rain check. If you take a rain check on something, it means that you decide to postpone or cancel something, usually because of the weather, or at least that's the origin of the expression, where if it's going to rain, you would cancel that event or reschedule it for later. So, given that there was a power cut last week, well, we had to take a rain check and reschedule this conversation to today, to now.
Let's do it.
And Mum, it's pretty good weather here. Over there, back home in England, is the weather nice?
I think we're having what they call a heat wave. A heat wave is where the temperature is above normal. So as soon as we finish this, the shirt will be off, the t-shirt will be on, the windows will be open because they're all closed because all I can hear is people mowing their grass. There's lawn mowers, there's hedge trimmers. So I've gone for it to be nice and quiet. But yes, I'm going to get out into the sunshine later.
Sounds like a great plan because it is boiling, it's roasting, it's scorching, it's 30 degrees here, which sounds great. But when you're inside, usually in countries in the north of Europe, houses aren't quite prepared, as well as houses are in Spain, Greece, Italy, Portugal, where you've usually got air conditioning and maybe the walls are a bit thicker and they're all painted in white. So then it usually keeps the cool temperatures inside and protects you when there are any kind of heat waves. So I guess we've just got to embrace the heat.
Absolutely.
Now, on to the first question. So I'll quickly share my screen so you can all see it. and it is, what kind of music are you into? And remember, be into is a way of saying that you are interested in something or you like something. So, Mum, what kind of music are you into?
Well, I like easy listening. Michael Bublé. We went to see Gregory Porter at Leeds Arena, and that was lovely. It was sort of jazz, American jazz, quite what I call smooth songs, a bit of Whitney Houston, things like that. Your dad, now he used to play bass guitar when he was younger. So he likes quite a lot of that type of thing. And many years ago, he took me to Manchester to see Pat Metheny and his group. Yeah, I know. He's still around. He tours still, I believe, and he was fantastic. But bearing in mind, I'd been working all day. I'd had a very long day. We were sat there, and I don't know what I expected. The music was lovely, but that is all it was. I was expecting lyrics, songs, but it was a bit more so "Ah," type thing, and I fell asleep. I felt so full. I mean, it was lovely. It lulled me. It was a beautiful experience, and what I heard was fantastic. So I probably wouldn't do that again. But I think, in fairness, as I say, it had been a long day. Now, this one might surprise you.
Go
Um,
on.
I've not said I'd buy the album or anything, but I've seen Youngblood, which
Uh-huh.
is
Yeah,
really
yeah.
called. Yeah, that does surprise you. It surprises me. And I listened to one, I think it was called Zombie. But it was just, and he's from South York. She's actually called Dominic. So you can tell the accent is a Yorkshire accent. It maybe uses a few too many swear words for my liking in interviews, but he seems a lovely guy. But it's the passion that he has for the music, and it just caught my interest. So that's a new one for me. What about?
Okay, wow. Now, to be honest, I've heard this song as well because I think it was voted as being the best live performance last year.
Yeah.
So that's what sparked my interest as well. It grabbed my attention. So I was like, okay, I've seen this guy on social media, but I've never actually listened to his music. And I saw that he was from Doncaster, I think, in South Yorkshire. So he has a very thick Yorkshire accent. And the song was really cool. And to be honest, I do kind of like indie and rock. I'm I've never been a big music fan in general. For many people, it's their passion and they absolutely love listening to music and playing musical instruments. In my case, growing up, it was never a source of interest. I wasn't that bothered about it most of the time. So I've always listened to different types of music, different genres. I had a period of time where I was really into hip hop and R&B and rap with Eminem and stuff like that. And then I had a period where I liked kind of more heavy rock and I'd go to different festivals and concerts. But I'd say usually what I like is kind of soft rock and indie. So to name a few bands, of course, Oasis, I think are amazing. The Red Hot Chili Peppers as well. And if we focus more on English bands, I love Arctic Monkeys, again from Yorkshire. And who else could I name? Let me think. The Killers as well. So if I go to a bar and sing karaoke, my go-to karaoke song is Mr. Brightside by the Killers. And that is an absolute banger. It's an absolute tune, if you ask me. And a banger, by the way, is a great song, but it can also mean a sausage, like bangers and mash. Bangers can also be fireworks. And if you look at a really old, rubbish car, you can say, oh, that's a right old banger, isn't it? So, banger is a very versatile word. Okay, shall we move on to the next question? Let's do it. And this one is the following. So, Mum, do you ever donate money to charity? Do you ever give money to charity?
Yes, I do. I tend to focus on something which is animal related. So I probably mentioned this before. I sponsor a dog. from it's called Dogs Trust, and quite often I seem to be offered the ones that can't be rehomed, that may be a little bit nervous or that just don't socialise enough. So it gives them a really lovely lifestyle, and it always says they never sort of put a healthy dog down. They don't sort of euthanize or put them to sleep. So it's nice. It's a nice feeling that you're helping, and obviously the money also goes to rehoming as well, which is the best thing. I'm on about the fourth dog now. Um, this one's called Billy and looks really cute, but I've had all different breeds, and you just donate something each month by direct debit or by standing order. Yes, I do that. I buy raffle tickets for the donkey sanctuary, so you can tell I'm quite animal orientated because I always think animals can't speak for themselves. And then just one which is close to my heart is that obviously I lost your grandma last year, and before that, granddad. And so he'd had a lot of help with something called Marie Curie, which is sort of cancer nurses, Macmillan nurses. So obviously, we donated to them as well because they've just really helped, sort of at a difficult time. So that was something I was, wanting to do. What about you, Lewis? Do you donate?
I mean, it sounds bad, and I feel guilty almost saying that usually I don't, to be honest. I think I maybe should, but at the same time, I'm sometimes a little bit skeptical about charities and how they actually manage their money. Call me a skeptic naturally, but I do think that maybe they don't really make the most of all the resources they have to help people in need. But of course, charities are still a good thing on the whole, without a shadow of a doubt. And for example, something that I do is if I'm paying for something in cash, then I might just leave a little bit of spare change in one of these kind of like cups where they're collecting coins and notes and stuff like that. So if I've got spare change, I will absolutely donate it. Or if I've got a friend or family member who's doing a challenge for a good cause, if, for example, anybody is running a marathon and they want to raise money for a certain charity, then absolutely I will contribute. And in fact, I was considering doing this for a beautiful story that's been all over the news for the last month, which I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, which is two guys who are roughly my age from a town in England, and they lost their mum recently because of a very strange and brutal version of dementia. And both of them have been diagnosed. So they know that they have 15 years to live normally before they start to forget things and not recognize people, and then also lose the ability to be independent. And what they've been doing since doing the London Marathon, wearing a fridge on his back, running an entire marathon. Since then, they've done a marathon a day in different towns and areas in Ireland, because I think they're of Irish descent. And they're doing all of this to try to make a big change and raise a lot of money for charity to try to find some kind of cure for dementia. And check it out, guys, on social media or Google. I think it's FTD Brothers. I think that's the username. And all of the videos that pop up are really moving. They're really emotional, and it gets to me. I feel like, oh, this is so sad. So I've considered donating money to their charity. And I think after saying this publicly, I'm going to do it. I'm going to give them a tenner. Why not? Come on. And by the way, a tenner is £10, 10 quid. And a
Yeah.
fiver is £5, 5 quid. And Mum, have you seen this story?
I have seen it. It has been on the news over here, and they seem two really, really nice guys. And they're taking a bad situation and using it to help others, which is respect to them, definitely. Yes, and it must be so hard. I mean, a fridge on your back, it'd be so heavy. Yes, but
It's
yeah.
crazy. So yeah, all the best to them, and hopefully they can raise as much money as possible for charity. Now, next question. This one is, how hard was it to learn how to drive? How complicated was it to learn clutch control, changing gears, and then ultimately passing both the theory and practical driving test? Mum, tell us about your experience.
Um, well, I failed my first driving test.
Uh-oh.
I knew I'd failed it because I was driving along and there was a lot of pigeons in the road and I automatically braked. And the driving instructor, I know. And the driving instructor next to me, he just sort of tutted loudly and just sort of said, "You should have just kept going. Somebody could have run into the back of you." And I was just think, well, and I couldn't really say anything else. So I think I just said something, "I'm sorry." And I knew I'd failed then because obviously it was quite dangerous. But all I saw as an 18-year-old me was a lot of pigs and I just didn't want to run them over. And luckily they all flew away. No pigeons were harmed. But obviously I failed my test. So it was a bit annoying. And obviously knowing what I know now, you would drive on and the pigeons would fly away. But yeah, so it was okay. I mean, I do remember when you were learning, I used to tell you and your sister, I remember taking you out and trying to look really relaxed and having my hands just gently resting on my knee, but my toes were like that, all curled up, the anxiety, because you just want to break for somebody. But I mean, you were great. I mean, both you and your sister, you both passed first time round. So yeah, you smashed it. Not literally.
Well, but it's funny because, of course, I passed my driving test first time. I think it took me about 5 or 6 months maybe to pass from turning 17 years old, because in the UK, you are allowed to start learning to drive when you're 17, not 18, like in many European countries. So I remember being so excited upon turning 17, like, oh, I can start learning to drive and I can start going out with you and dad to try and practice, especially clutch control. And your clutch is, if you're driving a manual car, then the three pedals you have, well, you have brake, accelerator, and clutch. So you need to press down on the clutch every time you are changing gears. And I remember this was really frustrating at the beginning. So for the first few weeks, I think I couldn't quite get the hang of it in terms of when to like lift your foot a little bit and when to press down. And we live in an area with a lot of hills as well. So if you're kind of at the top of a hill, it's much harder to manage your clutch control and you run the risk of the car stalling. So it happened to me a few times when I'd stall, which is when you can't quite manage control. And ah, it really, really annoyed me because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist and I want to learn things as quickly as possible. And with this, I couldn't quite get the hang of it, meaning I couldn't quite adapt and learn how to do it. But this was temporary, luckily. After a few weeks, I started to get the hang of it. And then on the day of the driving test, both the theory and the practical, I remember thinking, like, okay, that went better than I expected. So I remember feeling that I was quite nervous and anxious before doing each test. Well, it seemed like I had no reason to be. So
Mm,
luckily, for me, it was relatively easy to learn how to drive. And now I don't drive very often, but whenever I do get in the car, I still feel mainly confident.
good. Good.
So long may it continue.
Yes. I
Okay.
didn't know what your ways.
Yeah. And have you always got nervous on motorways, or is it more of a recent thing?
I think always, to be honest, because everybody drives so fast. But the older I get, the more nervous I am. But hey, I'm still happy to come to the airport anytime.
Right. I need someone to pick me up, of course, and drop me off. Okay, now the fourth question, I believe, is the following. If you could have any superpower, what would it be? And why, of course? Any superpower, what would it be? Mum, what would yours be?
Um, I'd quite like to be invisible. It would be very nice to sort of find out what people are thinking. So they call it like sometimes say, I'd like to be a fly on the wall, which means you'd like to sort of know what's going on behind closed doors. So I think that would be really quite interesting. But my sister, she's in some sort of, I think it's called like a sweepstake where they bet on different football teams getting through, so it's who goes through, and it accumulates the money that everybody puts in. So if you had a superpower where you knew who would win, so you could sort of think, well, they will, Manchester will beat Nottingham, and then Leeds United, of course, will beat whoever. And if you knew the outcome, you could get a lot of money from it. But sadly, I don't have either of those superpowers, so I'll just muddle along as I am.
Just keep going, just keep going, just
Yeah.
keep muddling along, which is a way of saying if you are muddling along, you're just, going about your life. You're just keeping going, just plodding along little by little, one foot after the other to keep going and keep progressing.
What about you and your superpower?
Well, there are many that I'd like to have, but of course we can't have everything. So I'd love to be able to fly and not be afraid of flying. I'd
Mhm.
love to be invisible as well. I'd love to be able to teleport. Teleportation would perhaps be the one that I might go for because just you could click your fingers and then, oh, I'm in Tokyo. Click my fingers. Wow, I'm in Buenos Aires. Click my fingers. Ah, amazing. I'm in Kenya. So
Yeah.
that would be so cool. But I don't know. I like the idea of being able to predict the future, to be able to make certain bets, to be able to get rich as a result. But maybe this could be complicated. If you can always predict the future, you might be terrified of what's coming and what's about to happen. So I think every superpower can have some downsides and some difficulties. But there's one that I was actually discussing with a student because last Friday I was asking a student these questions. And then we were brainstorming together and thinking, oh, one good option would be to automatically heal yourself. So if you fall and get hurt, then it would just automatically heal. So you've got a bruise maybe, and then in seconds, the bruise is gone. You've got a little cut like I have with this plaster, and then, perfect. It's amazing. So being able to heal yourself or even heal others would be incredible. And I don't really see any downsides as long as you are not immune to everything and then you live forever, because then that'd be a little bit sad seeing your loved ones die before you do. Yeah, I went off on a bit of a tangent there to the dark side, but let's just say healing myself. Cool. All right, let's keep going. Next question. And this next one is do 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 do. Mum, do you believe in ghosts or any kind of paranormal activity?
Um, I don't believe in ghosts, as in something like comes along like spooky, like white sheet, those type of ghosts. I know. I mean, it's difficult really because I know a friend of mine who she went to some sort of psychic because she really missed her parents and she wanted to try and contact them. And I'm just like you, I'm quite skeptical about these things, and I'm not sure that it's a good thing. I mean, for her, if it helps, each to their own. But I just, I'm not sure whether they can actually get in touch with people. I'm not sure what skills these people have to do it. So I probably don't. But having said that, as a Christian, I like to think that when we die, there is something else. It just doesn't end. Because obviously, I'd like to think now that my parents are together because they had a beautiful love story together from sort of childhood sweethearts. married over 60 years. And so it'd been lovely to think they're reunited. So in that way, I want to believe. So yeah, I want all the positives of it. Nothing spooky, just the positives.
And then, for example, if you're home alone and you hear any kind of strange or spooky noises, would your brain think like, "Oh, is it a ghost?" Or would you immediately think like, "Oh, maybe there's an animal, a little rat, or somebody's breaking into my house?"
Yes, and sometimes it depends on what you've watched on television. If you watch something quite scary, you might think, oh, but generally speaking, I don't think a ghost has broken in. No, it's more like a burglar. I don't know, but
Good. Me too, to be honest. I think there are some people, some friends who have told me about some spooky stories that lead you to believe that maybe there are
Mhm.
some kind of ghosts or spirits or something looking over at you. I don't know, maybe it could be a good thing or a bad thing, or perhaps it's a ghost that isn't actually scary and it's just a loved one who passed away and now they're looking down at you from heaven, maybe, and trying to protect you. I'm not sure. Personally, I don't really believe ghosts, but it's because I haven't had any experiences that would make me feel like that. And as we've discussed in the past, horror films, they're not really our thing either. So knowing that, maybe we haven't really gone deep into the topic of paranormal activity, but as things stand at the moment, I do not believe in ghosts. But hey, if I see any ghosts in real life, I will take it back. Okay, cool. Next question is a nice common one that if you're chatting to anyone, having a conversation in English, I'm sure you will discuss films and series. So you choose, Mum. What is the last film or series that you've watched?
Well, I haven't been to the cinema for ages, and the last time I went, it was a place called Ilkley, and they have everyman's cinemas, which means there's like settees and things, and there might be a little table, so you can sort of sit and relax. And it was the James Bond with Daniel Craig. It was his final outing as James Bond. I think it was called something like No Time to Die. It was about 2021, and I went there with Dad, and we watched this. And I'm sure everybody knows the ending by now, but the ending he died, and I was just like I remember turning to look at your dad, and we both sort of went, James Bond died? James Bond can't die. Um, but funnily enough, obviously he didn't because now they're shortlisting for somebody else to be 007. So the franchise will go on. Um, so yeah, but that was nice. So yeah, I don't do the cinema that often because I have this pet hate not hearing people sort of
Uh-huh.
eating and drinking and rustling papers. So and we do have like Netflix and Amazon Prime who aren't sponsored at all. This is not an ad, but so I
Imagine. I wish
yeah,
Amazon could sponsor me.
no, no. So I think that the last couple of things, well, I've been watching one called The Cleaning Lady, which is, I think, into about the fourth series, which I didn't expect. And then another one is called The Chestnut Man, which is subtitles. And then that went into something, but they've all been quite gory and a little bit. I like all the plot twists, the twists and turns, but some of them, one of them was about a cartel, the cleaning lady, and at the heart of it is a woman who's just doing the best for her sick son. But I do feel now I need a change. I need something light now. So when these series have stopped, I will actively look for something which is a feel good series. Enough of the car chases and things. I just want something happy now. What about you?
I mean, in my case, not last night, the night before, we watched a film at home, which was just after being out all day in the nice weather. We actually went to the beach here in Belgium, which was nice for a change. So, when you go to the beach and it's hot and it's windy and you're tired of walking and getting trains. We were exhausted. We were shattered. So when we got home, we actually made ourselves steak and chips, which was lovely. And we were having a look on Netflix and thinking, what should we watch? I've no idea. So then we stumbled across a new film by Sacha Baron Cohen, who is the actor from Ali G, Borat, Bruno, etc. And it's called Ladies First. So we thought, okay, it could be funny. It
Oh,
could be a feel good movie. So we watched it and it was all right. It wasn't bad. It was nothing incredible, nothing to write home about. But essentially, it is about a sexist, misogynist guy who is working at a company in London and, well, it's a world in which men are kind of behaving badly in a sexist way. And then uh, there is a moment when he walks into a lamppost and then he faints. And when he faints, he passes out. The world has switched completely. So it means that all women are in positions of power and men are much more sexualized, and he then goes through this whole experience of seeing what the world is like for women. And of course, you can imagine that his position changes, his opinions change throughout the film. And there are lots of little funny details as well that you can pick up on and realize. So it's kind of a feel good film, and it's quite an interesting twist on a common type of comedy. So I'd recommend it, but just know that it's not going to be the best film you ever watch. But hey, it's all right to pass the time. And it's called Ladies First. Yeah, you can give it a go. Okay,
I'll-
what was that?
I say I can have a look, bit of light entertainment.
Exactly. You can have a look, you can check it out. Now, the penultimate question we have: how important are good manners, in your opinion? And good manners in terms of being polite, not being rude, saying please, thank you, excuse me, and so on. Mum, what would you say?
Well, I hate people that are rude. I just think there's no excuse for it. It is just so basic that you would say please when you want something. You would thank somebody. I just can't understand why it's just not natural. Even our 2-year-old grandson, he is absolutely being drilled into him about the good manners, and he will say please. And sometimes, and it's so sweet, he'll be like, "Excuse me, grandma," and it melts my heart. So I'm working in a school. You do find that children would come up and they'd be like, "I want this," or "I want that," and I'd think, "Seriously?" And so I said, "Would you like that? Please?" Please is a really good word. Sometimes it would say, "Please, what's the magic word?" And they'd say, "Please." Yeah, so manners are really, really important to me, and respect. I also hate it. I can remember being somewhere and there's a nice guy, and he was talking to this other lady, and then he sort of said something, "And what did you do?" And I think she was in the police or whatever, and he sort of said, "And what rank were you?" And then she told him, and I just thought, how can you judge somebody on how high you are in your career? Because that shouldn't matter. I mean, it's not as if they work together, and it just really seemed a bit off to me. I just I don't know. I just think treat everybody with respect and the same. And it doesn't matter if somebody is cleaning for you, that's great. It just everybody should be treated with respect. Sorry, it's I'll get off my soapbox now. That means where I'm sort of giving a bit of a lecture, doesn't it? Sorry,
Oh,
but it's when you say manners that it just like sorry. Over to
no,
you,
no.
Louis.
You see, you don't need to apologize. And by apologizing and saying sorry, you're showing how important manners are to you. But no, I agree. I think it doesn't cost you anything. Saying sorry, saying please, the magic word, it's free. It's the same as if you're in a bad mood or not when you are dealing with different people, speaking to different people, communicating with them. It doesn't cost you anything to just smile and be a little bit nice instead of being a little bit grumpy and moody and not saying please and thank you. So I agree with you absolutely that manners are important. And maybe there are some examples of like manners that you might have when you are eating out or you're at a dinner party and maybe you're not supposed to cut meat in a certain way or you're not supposed to put your elbows on the table. These things, like, eh, I don't really care about them because for me, if you are enjoying food, you should grab it with both hands and forget the cutlery, forget the knives, forks, spoons, just really, really devour it. So these kind of like table manners, I don't care about personally, but saying please, thank you, excuse me, and smiling, then, like, as I said, they don't cost you anything and they can make a big difference when speaking to someone else. So yeah, team manners.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. Yes, it's all about that. I think I was in a supermarket and there was one person and their phone rang and there was the lady putting all the shopping through, and I don't think they acknowledged the lady, that the assistant shop assistant, and they just talked to somebody on the phone the whole time. And I just thought that is so rude. You know, just end your conversation and say to that person, "Oh, thank you," or whatever. Just don't go on ignoring somebody.
Right. One thing I make a point of doing because I'm always listening to podcasts or whatever when I go out for a walk or when I go to the shop, I always make a point of taking out my AirPods as I'm about to pay, just so then it feels like I'm not completely ignoring the person that is serving me. Because if you are the person who is at the till, the cashier, and constantly got people who won't even like barely look at you, then it must be like horrible. You must be in such a bad mood all day. So yeah,
Brought you up well, Lewis.
I know, right? I know. Now, final question. Are there any cities that you would love to visit? And I mean cities that you'd love to visit that you haven't already visited. So, Mom, which cities would you love to visit?
Well, we did visit you when you did your year out. You know, when you were doing your Spanish and Italian degree. Obviously, you went to the different countries, and one of them you were in Sicily. I think it was Palermo, and I probably pronounced that wrong. Apologies. But that was very, very beautiful, and I do love it. I mean, like Seville. Oh, the cathedral is amazing. I think if there's just on my bucket list, if there's something I'd like to do before I die, that was very dramatic, but somewhere I'd like to go, then I think I would like to see the Sistine Chapel. Whether I'll get there, I don't know. If not, I'm quite happy to go to York Minster, which is way closer. But yeah, I think I would try and get there. Just to sort of see the ceiling, painted by Michelangelo. I just think that would be a really nice experience. But then a friend went and she did say it was very busy. So I think I'd need to try and go sort of off peak when there weren't too many crowds. I mean, you've traveled lots of places, Lewis. So I'm not sure where you still want to go.
I mean, there are still many places I would absolutely recommend going to Rome, and it's relatively easy to fly from the UK to Rome. There are lots of connections, lots of flights that are relatively affordable. So, Mom, you should get it on your bucket list for sure. And
Mm.
well, in Europe, there are still quite a lot of cities that I haven't visited that I'd love to visit. And most of them are around Central Europe, let's say. So I've never been to Vienna. I'd love to go. I've
Oh,
never been to Budapest. Would love to go. Never been to Prague. I'd love to go as well. So those are maybe three that are near the top of my list and that are very doable that I'll probably go at some point in the medium term. And aside from that, well, there are loads of places that I'd love to visit. But I think usually when it comes to places that are much further away and more exotic, I'm more attracted to the idea of going to beaches, forests, nature, and so on. Because I remember when I went to certain areas in Southeast Asia, I had such a good time on these little islands or in nature. But then a lot of the cities were just too much for me. There was too much traffic, or it's a little bit chaotic for my liking. So in Bangkok, for example, which is an amazing city, it was a little bit stressful for me because there was so many things happening at the same time. So that's why Thailand, absolutely love it, but I love the beaches and the islands and the more chilled areas rather than these huge metropolises. So that's what I'd say. Awesome. So let's do a little recap then. Let me go over some of these key words and phrases. First is take a rain check, which is to cancel something. Next, a banger could be a good song, an old car, fireworks, or the other one was sausages, of course. If you put an animal down, this is a nice phrasal verb which means to sacrifice. So if you've got a pet and they're very, very sick, the vet might recommend that you put them down to save them some suffering. Then you mentioned a direct debit or a standing order, which is when you have like a subscription where every month you have a payment coming out of your account. Speaking about money, a fiver, £5, a tenner, £10. And then we moved on to cars. And there was a phrase which you said, which was somebody could have run into the back of you. And we're speaking about driving. So it's funny that we use the verb to run into, because running, when, well, you are running. But if someone hits you or crashes into you, bumps into you, you can also say they could run into you. Then I used the phrasal verb get the hang of. I used it quite a lot, which is to start to learn how to do something. It was difficult for me to get the hang of clutch control and preventing stalling when I was learning how to drive. Speaking about superpowers, Mum, you mentioned you'd like to be invisible. You'd like to be like a fly on the wall, which is a nice phrase when you are kind of just observing. You're seeing what's happening because you are invisible. Nobody else realizes that you are there. Then another lovely phrase that both of us use quite a lot is each to their own, which is a way of saying everybody does different things and that's cool. No judgment. Each to their own. And then the final thing I wrote down was just me when I was speaking about the film that I recommended, Ladies First, which was that the main character, Sacha Baron Cohen, he hit a lamppost and he fainted. Phrasal verb, he passed out. Not to be confused with pass away, which is to die. It's a common error. And that's it. So, Mum, thank you so much for joining me once again. And now you're going to go out in the garden, right?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Well, enjoy sunbathing. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, for watching, listening, and we'll see you again in a fortnight, in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.